Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on CPG marketing, digital innovation, and DTC in a fast-paced environment. I'm Aviva. I'm the head of organic acquisition at yellowHEAD, and I'll be your host today. yellowHEAD is a performance marketing company. We're based out of Israel, New York, and Europe, and we help brands grow through a blend of marketing efforts and technologies. We manage campaigns across organic and paid channels, providing ASO, UA, SEO services, as well as in-house creative production and our Allison SaaS creative analytics platform. And we're so happy to host today representatives from Procter & Gamble and from Facebook at this webinar. I'll let each panelist introduce themselves before we dive into the actual webinar. So who'd like to start?
Ladies first.
I think. Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Nitzan. I'm head of agencies at Facebook. I've been at Facebook for the past 3 years. And for many years, I've worked at creative and media agencies. And I've also done some time in marketing roles in large CPG companies such as Coca-Cola. So I totally feel like I'm closing the loop here today. I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Happy to have you.
All right, let's go.
Awesome. So I can go next, maybe. Hi, everyone. I'm Tuto. I lead startup Pampers. We did P&G. And our mission is to disrupt the business model, shifting from a mass media model to a one-on-one transformation or one-on-one communication at scale, leveraging data. I've been working. Nitzan, you said the time in the company, that's so bad, man. Now I have to say, I've been 16 years with P&G, which is amazing. And for the last 7 years, I've been leading this disruption, working with our friends here. So super excited to be talking about a really cool subject. So thank you guys for inviting me and having me.
Great. So last and hopefully not least, Guy Bauer. I'm the head of paid and organic performance for P&G brands in yellowHEAD. I've been with yellowHEAD. It sounds not too much compared to Tuto in the past 4 years, but I've been working with a lot of very interesting brands and focusing on P&G in the recent years. I'm also a digital marketing lecturer at the MBA program at Bauer University in the past 2 years. And I'm very excited to be doing this. So thank you for everyone who joined, and good luck to all of us.
Cool. Thanks, guys. We also have Guy Sneer, who's the head of CPG at Facebook Israel, who's joining us. So just to give you a run through of the agenda for today. In our first session, Guy Sneer is going to be talking to us about the relationship between the consumer packaged goods vertical and D2C, and how COVID-19 has obviously impacted that relationship. He'll showcase Facebook's best practices on how to implement and grow D2C in traditional organizations. We'll then move into a live panel with Guy Bauer and Tuto Marolla, moderated by Nitzan, our guest interviewer from Facebook. And in the panel, we'll discuss the disruption of the traditional CPG world, innovation, and the growing digitalization of CPG marketing, and how COVID has accelerated this transformation. We'll also touch on how creative has shifted to correspond with these changes as well. Then we'll go into a live Q&A session with the panelists. So it's super important that everybody sends in their questions to the Q&A section. And we'll try to address as many of those questions as possible towards the end of the webinar. So we've got a lot to cover, of course, and we want to get into it. So we'll start with the DTC session. And if you'll bear with me, I'll just share my screen.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. My name is Guy Sneer, and I've worked at Facebook for the past 2 years, leading the CPG vertical at Facebook Israel. Super excited to be here today. and I would like to talk with you about one of the most fascinating topics in the CPG landscape, which is direct to consumer, moving to direct to consumer, and share with you some insights regarding those direct to consumer processes that launched during the past year. Our agenda for today consists of three main topics. First, the past. I would like to talk about the history of the relationship between direct to consumer and consumer packaged goods, and of course how it affects the present and the future. Then we're going to jump to the present and how the COVID-19 reshaped this relationship. And last but not least, the main point of our session today will be definitely the future, direct to consumer mindset. We put it in a kind of a new concept for you, a concept that distinguishes between companies that had some tactical move, sprinter, as opposed to strategic moves, the marathon runners. So let's start. First, the foundation and short background. Consumer packaged goods, we know that those are products that sell quickly at a relatively low cost with short shelf life. We know that CPG verticals consist of many subcategories: household items, personal care, beauty, cosmetic, food and beverages, etc. But we definitely all can agree that those products have high frequency. They consume quite frequent with a low average order value. And when I will talk about direct to consumer, I will talk about a manufacturer that sells directly to the consumers and actually controls the whole process from end to end, and bypassing the retailer and actually adding a new distribution model from his traditional B2B model to direct channel model. And products that are suitable for direct consumer channel are a bit different, right? They have a different features in order them to be, I would say, economically viable. Think about it, they must have a high average order value. And there is a pretty clear reason for that. Think about the OPEX, the operational costs that come with the direct channel. Think about the fee, delivery fee, and the customer acquisition cost, etc. And in order to justify each transaction, they need to have a high average order value. And about the frequency, during the past year, the digital native vertical brands dominated the D2C playground, first with a high frequency product, but lately with the low frequency too, when the high average order value cover it, right? The low frequency, think about mattresses with purple, suitcases with away, etc. And the interesting point is the connection between the CPG and those direct, the digital native vertical brands. We saw that new players began to penetrate into kind of new attractive categories in the world of the consumer packaged good. Think about the shaving category, as we all witness with Dollar Shave Club, the player that opened the doors to many, and now we disrupted the shaving category. And we saw that this kind of disruption started where in the categories with a high potential for price reduction, but nowadays it expands to many other categories, from luxury products, perfume, creams, etc., beauty products, and as you can see here, like even the electric toothbrushes with Quip, Shine, Gleam, etc. And the CPG brands were slower with their reaction to this kind of disruption, and they got their own reasons, right? Think about it, how those CPG giants are based on high volumes. On each part or point on their value chain, the high volumes is their main advantages, right? About the sales, small margin, high scale, high volumes, and distribution, as you can see here. So actually getting to a new direct-to-consumer channel, and I put aside for 1 second the high setup costs that come with the e-commerce infrastructure, the operational cost with CAC and delivery, as I mentioned before, there is a really big question mark, and actually kind of losing your main advantage, right? And beside that, added to the lack of compelling consumer value proposition, and we're going to talk and elaborate a bit more during the session, and of course the channel conflict. The fear of channel conflict, where direct to consumer might perceived as a threat by the existing distributor. But despite those challenges, we witnessed that consumer packaged goods players penetrated and got into the D2C playground by three main strategies. First, the build strategy, when the CPG actually, I would say, owns and operates the channel from A to Z, including customer acquisition, vendor management, online store fulfillment, delivery, customer engagement, etc. There are many sub-strategies to do so, maybe to penetrate to a new niche with a new model, like Lumi by Pampers did, Lumi, the baby monitor, the sleep system, or to think about like taking an existing product and wrap it with a new model, like Gillette did with the subscription model, right? And getting to lock the frequency or to get high average order value. Strategy number two will be definitely partner. Each CPG player can decide which part of the value chain to control and which to outsource. And this is a great example by Tyson, how they would like to avoid the hassle of building their own e-commerce platform and all these associated support services, logistics, customer care, etc., and just partner with Amazon and develop a branded landing page for their test makers meal kit. And the last strategy number three will be definitely buy, when CPG manufacturer can acquire a company, like we all know the Dollar Shave Club with Unilever example, and how P&G has tried to do to acquire Billy until the Federal Trade Commission sued and to block this kind of acquisition. But those are the main three strategies, and I would say that whatever your key role of your direct to consumer channel is, if it's focuses on a pure sales channel or a great place to gain insights and innovation, there are many good reasons to consider to get into this direct to consumer. We talked about the growing competition from the D2C startups, but the competition comes from the private label as well, from the established retailers, right? And I think that the consumer packaged goods player understood that they must reduce the reliance of those kind of retailers regarding financial, right, to get a higher control over margin. But even sometimes more important is the subject of first party data access. This is how it can help the CPGs understand their customers on a deeper level, and of course influence their loyalty, their customer loyalty, the product development, and even their advertising. And beside that, there are many other good reasons to do so, by controlling the user experience, or a great place to gain some direct insight from your customers, sorry. And then the COVID came, right? And the COVID-19 actually changed, affects the whole direct-to-consumer world. The direct-to-consumer market even now is booming, right? Direct-to-consumer sales were almost reached to $18 billion in 2020, with a 24% growth year over year. And we saw that the connection again between CPG and D2C, when more than half of American consumers said that they are using direct-to-consumer channel in order to shop for CPG, and maybe even more, those that even migrated to D2C said that there is no plan of reverting to their whole holding shopping habits, which means that those trends are here to stay. And of course, after the consumer, we saw how the companies reacted quite fast. And we call it the surge of the build model by CPG giants. How PepsiCo initiative launched a new two direct-to-consumer in 30 days, Next.com and Pantry Shop and Colgate and Kraft and Nestle and Unilever, Kellogg's and etc. There are many other great examples. But the future and the big question now, and this is where I want to create a real value for you, is to understand and to help those kind of clients and to distinguish first between the ones who evolve direct to consumer, who focus on direct to consumer to a short-term opportunity due to COVID, due to the demand surge, etc., as opposed to the ones who would like to evolve this short-term opportunity to a long-term business growth driver. Companies that think like a sprinter, like Usain, or companies that think like yellowHEAD, the marathoner, right? And I would like to share with you some differences, key differences regarding their mindset. So on Usain mindset, those are companies that are seizing the short-term opportunity during the COVID, right? Thanks to there was like a demand surge. But the marathon, the companies who think like for a long term, they want to build on the short-term opportunities, but focusing on the long-term possibilities. They will focus on expansion by a deep dive changes, like adding new capabilities, new team members with the expertise, building technological infrastructure. While the sprinter attitude is to focus only on speed, to seize the opportunity. Usain mindset will be probably to protect the market share and to meet immediate customer needs like product availability and safety. While the marathoner, the long-term gain, will focus on to increase the market share, and it's derived from the understanding that the direct-to-consumer is something more than to seize a short-term opportunity. There is a lot of competition. We saw back at the beginning of the session with the digital native over there. So he understands like a digital native when he wants to meet a new customer needs, like convenience, like quality of service. And here at Facebook Israel, actually, we analyze over 20 different parameters that differentiate between the sprinters and the marathoners, both local and global, regarding CPG companies. And based on our analysis, we saw that there are 5 key parameters that I would like to share with you: the organization and structure, the product, the commerce foundation, creative and funnel, and measurement. And for each of these parameters, we identified the specific actions that organizations can take to ensure that they are maximizing. This is the point, to maximizing the opportunity of their D2C strategy for a long term. But today I would like to focus only of the product parameter, all right? The product offering, due to time limitation. And let's dive into this word. So the product offering here is also like it's a different mindset. The sprinter mindset saying that the perception is believing that physical retail success can be directly and maybe easily translated into online success, and they can and they can sell the exact same product online as they do offline. While the marathon mindset is pretty much different. He understands that customers are getting this product from other sources, like Amazon, like the retailer. So he need more than a little incentive to give to his customers in order to purchase his product directly from him. Because his mindset saying that if you can buy it in the marketplace or at the retailer, don't even bother. The main KPI, I would say, of the sprinter will be the CAC. He knows that all customers are equal, but he focuses on the short term and and on the speed, the fast. Sorry for that. While the marathoner understand that despite the fact that all customers are equal, they don't represent equal business value. That's why when he thinks about the long term, he would like to focus on lifetime value. And instead of copy pasting the offering from online to offline, he would like to create an evolving product offering. So here I would like to share with you the marathoner product offering mindset. He understands that he needs to push to increase the average order value, but he understands that different pack size or bundles are not a long-term solution. He needs something more than that. And he would like also, of course, to lock the frequency, to get a high frequency by new subscription or other techniques. So I would like to share with you some examples of how a marathoner runner will think about the product offering and getting his product to this new D2C playground. So of course, there is one level of personalization. I said that we need a higher average order value, and we can get it by personalization, kind of adding your personal touch. Those are just only two examples. Let's focus on one with Mars and M&M's, how actually the Mars capitalizing on gifting markets, and with this unique opportunity to design your own M&Ms and buy them through their online store. Right, so this is a good example of unique value proposition that's available only through direct to consumer channel, and how you use personalization in order to get a higher average order value. But in order to take it to the next level, there is a more deeper level of personalization. And here is a great example by Function of Beauty, because when you hear the phrase customized skincare, you may picture products with your initials or package in your favorite color. But here they took it into the next level, right? They teamed up with a few scientists to create formulas for your specific skin concerns in mind. A custom product for you. You are not only adding your personal touch, they build the product for you. So this is like a great example how to get a new level of personalization. And the second example will focus on the subscription, how we would like to lock the frequency. And here is a great example by L'Oreal that launched a new hair coloring brand, Color & Co, which is only available direct to consumer. But L'Oreal, I think, spotted a unique opportunity, and they understood that there are some new products that fit to subscription model, and you must take advantage of that. Think about more products that may be suitable for subscription, that is based on the consumer habits that have changed lately. And the Nespresso of beers by Heineken, their new machines, and how people consume beverages, etc. And another great and important point will be the post purchase, and sometimes how those kind of players need to their attitude will adjust, that post purchases sometimes might be more important than the purchase itself. Here is a great example by Beans, a D2C Beans coffee company from Israel, that send their customers a coffee each month with the coffee, of course with the coffee beans, but each time they present and they like sharing with their customers a new gift, a new surprise that of course related and is suitable for their target audience. So I would like to wrap it up before we will end our session. We talked about three main things today. We talked about the past, and we have witnessed how CPG brands were slower to move into direct-to-consumer space. They had their own reasons, but they did so, despite those challenges, they did so by three main models: build, partner, and buy. And then the COVID came, right? And we saw that there was a surge of the build model. But we would like to focus that there are two different attitudes and mindsets for those direct-to-consumer initiatives. And we advise our clients, of course, to adopt the marathoner mindset, to focus on LTV and not the CAC. And in each parameter, and there are plenty, and today we did a deep dive into the product offering, they understand that the competition landscape, the competitive landscape has changed dramatically, and they need to bring something more than a bundle or a different package size. So think about the next personalization and understand that higher average order value is not enough in order to justify a direct-to-consumer channel and products. And think about the evolution of subscription model, a new product fit for subscription model, next to how the first purchase needed to be to take into account not less than the purchase itself. That's all for today, and thank you so much for joining me. Please feel free to challenge me and to email me questions, remarks, and everything, and have a good day. Back to you.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks, Guy, for a super insightful presentation. We're actually going to turn it over now to Nitzan. We'll kick off the panel with Tuto and Guy Bauer.
Yeah, hi guys. How is everyone?
Excellent.
Okay.
Living the dream.
Cool. So there are a few matters I want to chat to you about. And I know everyone might be a little sick of talking about COVID-19, but I can't promise we won't talk about it. So let's get started. I think I'll start with Tuto. So following Guy's session on D2C, I wanted to ask you, what does D2C mean for CPG companies from your experience? I mean, is it more of a sprint or a marathon?
That's a good question. I'd say it's highly dependent on how each brand or company has taken it. And I think it's a pretty nice framework to think about it. My perspective is on the cases I've seen, it's definitely more about a marathon because, you know, when a CPG brand decides to go DTC, you have to have in mind so many considerations, which Guy very well shared there, right? It can mean a big threat, a perceived threat for your existing customers. It requires a whole set of new capabilities, right? And new experiences that you're offering the consumer. And I feel like definitely with COVID, many brands just had to do it because, you know, it was the only way to serve demand. But definitely we need to have a strategic look at it. And, you know, what I've seen is those brands and teams who think ahead and say, hey, what's going to be the value proposition? What's going to be the type of experience we want consumers to have? What's going to be the point of difference? You immediately think about, you know, what are the capabilities you need? Because this is new for many of us, you know, who have sold through retailers for so long. And I think the key element is what's the business challenge and how would a DTC enable solving that business challenge? And this should be, you know, this should lead you to craft the right vision and the right plan for it. So while I think it's true, some companies have gone, you know, let's just have something by tomorrow on the air. Everyone now should be thinking on what's the long-term play? How is this serving our business? What's the strategy behind? And therefore, what do we need to, you know, do differently?
Yeah. Guy, what's your take on this?
It's interesting, I think, Tuto, because I agree on the marathon perspective. Definitely the perspective that should be taken and but not always taken. I think in many cases brands tend to they want to be marathoners, but they want to get sprinter results and get like results yesterday. And when we think about the DTC strategy, a lot of things involved, right? The product, like the product we sell and the interface we sell the product in, the offering, the clearly the experience, the operational cost, everything has to do with it. So if you want to create a sustainable channel of DTC, definitely think as a marathon and definitely build this. And one other say is like, I don't think it's for everyone. I would say like you need to do the calculation, do the math before first, as Tuto said, like what business impact you want to drive, like what is the need, what we can do with this DTC channel, and maybe the decision can be sometimes we can use a lean model, we can use a different model, we can use not a full DTC channel. I think it's really different decision between brands. We do see the need of the surge of DTC now also with COVID as discussed, but definitely marathoner. And this has to be a long-term planning with goals and good user experience in the funnel, because this is the key to create a high LTV.
Yeah. And, you know, thinking about long-term, you can't
Guy, by the way.
Sorry?
Yeah.
No, sorry, Nitzan. I think my connection it's a bit slow, but like I thought what Guy said was super important, because the worst thing you can do is have a DTC that's just sleeping there, right? So you have it to check the box, but then it's not driving anything, and most likely it's just, you know, wasting resources. And, you know, to Guy's point, like it needs to be serve a very clear purpose. It may not necessarily be, you know, sales. You could do it because of your data strategy. You could do it because of your customer experience. You want to try new things, whatever that is. but it needs to be, well thought and not just ticking the box. And I definitely think that, right now there are so many opportunities around new niches and new value propositions. It can be about the product, it can be about the experience, it can be about the journey, it can be how it's wrapped, but definitely the worst thing to do, at least, is to go soft or just check the box, but not have a really clear strategic intent behind it.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities. And definitely around this time where, we have to say COVID has impacted all of what we know. And I have to ask you, how do you think COVID has impacted CPG companies? I mean, what are the main pain points that you've had to work through in the past year?
I can take that one. And I think, Guy, then, you have broader experience with other companies, in the CPG space. But I can say from my point of view, COVID really accelerated a number of trends that were already happening, right? And it made it obvious that we had to go there. I think that's one of the biggest disruptions. And then with this acceleration, you face capability gaps, and you don't have the right processes, or you don't have the right speed, or you don't have the right tools. So for us, it really made evident that there's a consumer shift that's going to stay. There's a capability shift in terms of how proficient we are with data, with online business, not even online advertising, with big data, with creative pacing. And I think the right approach, or the best approach, was any crisis is going to force you to kind of step up, but after this crisis, those capabilities stay, right? That resilience, that new knowledge, that new experience is going to stay. So on the flip side, if you look at the e-commerce percentages, it's very, very low, right? It's like in many categories, it's less than 10%. So I still think while COVID accelerated, a number of trends, the potential is just so much bigger. So all the more reason to get into it and learn and fail and learn.
Yeah, so to Tuto's point, like going maybe one level up on the country level, if you would look into numbers like when COVID started, like you can see countries that have doubled their e-com consumption, like people have moved, like they didn't have choice, like consumers just, it's a matter of like behavior change. It's more psychological. If we think on COVID generally, there are a lot of psychological effects, and one of them was just shifting. First, no choice. A lot of stores weren't just open. People were scared to go out and start buying online. So countries like France almost doubled their e-com consumption. And when you think about it, it's not only e-com. Generally, the consumer behavior has changed, and health and fitness has grown in double digit, and banking and fintech has grown in double digits. And I think that, and I love the acceleration point, because I think that from all of this understanding is that for the short term, yes, it accelerated out of, let's say, no choice. It just accelerated the online demand. I think that what has to be now, and this is for the upcoming years, is let's say sustainable model for all companies that just shifted to DTC, to scale it up, to make it scalable, to create good user experience, and to use the right tools to enable it. If we look at the household share in the United States, around 50% were only like digital buying households, like they were doing their shopping online. Over than 50% of the Americans have an Amazon Prime subscription, and they buy their shopping, groceries, everything like via Amazon. So when you think about it, it's not that like far, it's here, and it just accelerated. It's not that the demand has grown in a definite way. People were stocking up in many cases. It, like there was a stage that you couldn't get wipes in the States and you couldn't get toilet paper in Israel. It was like this. But the behavioral change, this is what's going to stick with us, and the companies and brands that will know to do the shift and build a strategy accordingly, that it's their vision also. It's a matter of a vision. There are companies who do not want to deal with it, and it's not right or wrong. It's just there are companies who are still not there. They will build the strategy according to good value, high value proposition, like also Guy Sneer mentioned, for the users. It's going to be sustainable and harvest demands on a higher level because consumers and users are moving to the digital space. So that's my take.
So yeah, that's really interesting, Guy. Following up on that, would you say that do you foresee the online space becoming the main driver for sales in the upcoming years?
I would say it's going to grow. I think that if we look on brand sales, and again, from reports, analysis, from our experience, yellowHEAD's experience, and my experience, you see that online sales are not the main share in many cases. Also for big companies, I'm talking about traditional big companies, it's still the traditional retailers and like selling via stores like Target and Walmart and so forth. But it will grow. It will grow significantly, and we already see brands who are were established solely on DTC, online DTC, like Dollar Shave Club was mentioned earlier, Chewy, 23andMe, and a lot of other Harry's, Casper for mattresses in the States, and a lot of companies who just founded their infrastructure on online. So it's going to be a bigger driver. It's not going to be the sole driver. I don't think that traditional retail is dead, but it's going to be, let's say, an interesting combination of bricks and clicks, and digital is going to drive way more online sales and offline sales together.
Actually, Guy, that's a great point. Like the last one you said, because like, many of us are thinking on DTC, or, online, and we are thinking of the online sales that you can attribute or sell directly. But, DTC and the content you have there and the experience you have there affects everything. So many consumers will go and have the experience online, and that will be a key indicator, like ratings and reviews, whether you go and shop offline or not, right? So the impact of online, I think, Nitzan, to your point, is going to be even bigger. I definitely think the percentage is going to grow, but the impact of online across the board is going to be just bigger and bigger as we get, if I think of how many people have a cell phone in the world, how many people have 5G, how easy and how much better the technology would be. And then, at some point, AR, VR, all this stuff is going to be more, chewable in a way, or, be more available, readily available. So online is there to stay for sure. And the moment to learn now is through stuff like DTC, not only, but like, and the other thought I wanted to share is, myself and many, of the CPG people, we come from a mass media and mass market perspective, right? So we're used to thinking, okay, I have, one message, one product, blah, blah, blah. And what I always encourage people to think is the new world is not about a few benefits or a few products. It's about a collection of niches, right? And you can have, because of the power of digital, you can access anywhere, any person in the world, right? So in my view, through technology and data, we're going to be able to serve many more niches that today we are not able to serve. But those niches will be huge because they are just global, so you need to forget about the country's boundaries and so on. It comes with a lot of changes, on the backside. But definitely, I think that's the kind of way to think about the impact digital is going to bring, because it's the, in a way, Amazon play, but like multiplied for any company, any vertical.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we've also seen, like, talking about data, we've seen great shifts in creatives as data becomes more and more prominent, right? So with this in mind, Tuto, where do you see the future of creatives heading?
Oh, such a good question. So I think, so a number of things we've experienced, right? So, I'm working with Guy, when we see our acquisition play, for example, for loyalty app, we have over 200 audiences on air at any given point. We have way over, I don't know, like 50 or 100 creatives, and we churn those creatives like on bi-weekly sprints, right? So we've had to change how we develop creatives, how fast, we can test different ideas. That's actually an interesting point. Like the times of discussing in a round table, should we go this way or that way, those are gone. We just put them on air. You have a version of each, you put them on air, and you see the response directly, and you start to choose and optimize in that way. Where I see big potential for technology and data is definitely on getting smarter beyond our minds and the Excel, right? So we need to leverage AI to understand out of these 400 creatives that worked, what were the key elements. And, actually the Allison technology in yellowHEAD goes around that. So I think definitely there's something there. And then the second point is there's a lot of discussion on, what's going to be up to machines and what's going to be up to humans, right? And I think in the creative space, the classical 2-for-1, get a 50% discount, that's going to be off the table for the creative teams. That's going to be, machine learning powered. But then the creative teams will have freedom of mind to really think on the right or, truly creative communication experience. So I'd say that making us smarter through this big data and machine learning for audience work, for creative work, and for analytics and the analysis of what worked, that's definitely, some of the impacts I'm seeing, and I think are just going to be much bigger.
Yeah, Guy, I guess it has impacted the way you worked at the agency. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Definitely. I think also before that, Tuto, I was curious on the amount of tests we did. So I digged in a bit. We're people of data. So you will be surprised, not surprised, but we've collaborated on over 11,000 ads in the past few years.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a true number. And I think when Tuto says data, so I will start with yellowHEAD. We have Allison, it's our creative technology, ideation technology. Technically, it breaks down using AI and attribute tagging, breaks down the creative to the level it can first drive significant impact to the activity itself, but also drive insights to the business, which is a very important thing that we've seen throughout the years, because when you do any digital campaign, you also want to drive back insights to the business. It's not a matter of like succeeding on Facebook. It's not interesting. Like it's a small scale digital tactic campaign, but when you have a wide portfolio with social, search, programmatic, native advertising channels, you can drive insights across those channels back to the brand. It's super significant. And I think on the creative side, yes, data. And going back to basics, maybe clear-cut messaging, like we know what are the numbers. People are scrolling through hundreds of feeds daily in social apps and online. The attention is low and it's getting lower. So we need to grasp the user attention faster. We need better creative. We need AI. We need data. And clear-cut messaging is a key thing. Clear hypothesis and what insights you want to drive back. Tuto mentioned when we started the webinar on DTC, what is the business goal? Same goes here. What do we want to test? What is the important thing we want to drive from our activity? What do we want to learn? We can launch the creatives. We need to understand what we want to drive back in the shape of insights. And last and definitely not least is data. Everything has to do with data and AI and creative technology. And referring to Allison again, this is the future. And I don't believe it will take over all manual work and the human mind, because this is what drives success. We believe in people. So this is what drives success. But with the technology, it becomes way more sophisticated, way more easier, and can ramp up brands. And we've seen hundreds of % of increase in ROI with a lot of our partners globally. So this is the effect, and this is what tells us that it's where it goes.
I think, and just to close, I'm sorry guys, I really like to talk, so I hope it's interesting. This is my moment of fame. But Guy was mentioning all the testing and so on, and it wasn't easy to learn how to work with so much data, to be honest. We struggled a lot around, okay, how do we and I don't know, I guess people in the audience have felt this too. It's the potential of data and technology, but it's not that easy to actually get there. You know the theory, but how do you get there? So, with Guy and the team, we had to, and, also with Sachi and all of our partners working together, we had to figure out and find our way through how to use the data in a productive way. Because, being overwhelmed by data, that's not useful. And, I just wanted to share two thoughts there. I think one is the teams doing this on the brands need to be highly proficient, as well as, the team on the media side, the creative side, and so on. We are not anymore in the world where, hey, the agency is doing this and we don't care. Like, from the dialogue of the core team, with every, partner has a key role. That's where the great ideas come. It's not one side or the other. But for this, everyone in that team needs to have a high level of proficiency, which means, proficiency on data, on how it works. And then the second point, which, Guy keeps reinforcing very rightly so, is what's the objective? What's the objective? What's the objective? We are not here to just test or just learn or just see data. Because that question, what's the objective or what's the hypothesis you are trying to prove, will focus which data you look at. Because otherwise we can look, I remember the reports we had, with the yellowHEAD, and you can see, like, I don't know, every breakdown possible, right? To the asset level and audience level and bidding and so on. So it's not manageable. So I think for the teams doing this and looking to do this, you need to also work on how you work with the data and with the creative, so that you can maximize the efficiency and the effectiveness versus spending 5 hours looking at every possible, angle, and then coming out with, okay, let's cut the budget or increase the budget.
Yeah. So Tuto, I'm curious, working in a startup environment inside a very big corporation, how do you manage to move things quickly?
Another great question. So I'm happy the webinar will last 3 hours. So let me start. Now, look, it's a great question. Maybe I can share a few points that I think have been critical for us. And we started working on this, with our small team 8 years ago. So it's been a journey from incubating the idea and the first, attempt, all the way to proving a pilot and then scaling this pilot to a market, then to different markets. Now we've, scaled to 8+ of our top markets, including US, Japan, Germany, and so on. A few keys for me. The first one was a clear vision and mission of what we wanted to achieve, because that's what management needs to buy in a way, because you don't know what you don't know, and you're going to have many failures if you're truly doing disruptive innovation. So the only North Star that you have is that vision. The second point to achieve this is you need to have a disruptive team with different personalities, right? You can't have people who love the process. You can't have people who, are risk averse. You can't have people who want to say, hey, this is what's worked, so let's do more of the same. So in our case, we had to be very specific and handpick the people that came to our team and that we chose to come to bring. Now, all of this is very nice, but if you don't get the support from management, nothing's going to work. And support means autonomy. And when I say, autonomy, I think one critical element is you need to have the budget. So, having a disruptive team with no money will not lead anywhere. So you need to have the budget. You need to have the, in a way, permission to take risks and take significant risks. And then I think the third one is, you need to be enabled. So many times we were bringing to our sponsors, hey, we need to either trash or change these 5 processes. This is not working for us. And literally for the first years, we had a pretty, blank check in terms of do it the way you think it's going to work or the way you find out to work. And then we'll see what we do with the broader process. So, that autonomy has been critical. But then again, you need a framework, because if you don't have a specific framework, you can take too much risk. So we definitely were clear that on a few things, there was no risk taking, like, privacy, data, doing the right thing. We were not going to do something fishy, right? But what we were going to do was to challenge anytime we were doing a process for the process sake. Like if this is the goal and the process is not serving the goal, the process needs to go. So I think those were a few of the keys I can think of in terms of how do you pull this, through in such a big corporation.
Yes, so interesting. I think I'm going to turn it back to Aviva so we can get a few questions from the audience. What do you guys say? I think we're just getting warmed up, aren't we?
Many more questions. They keep coming. So thanks everyone for sending your questions in. This one is for Nitsan. What's your take on the role of the agency in a D2C project, and what does a good partnership look like?
Okay, so I guess the role of the agency, as I see it, in these kind of projects, D2C, has to be 100% synced with the client's vision and business needs, because they really have to match. So just like Tuto said about P&G shifting from traditional company working with traditional agencies to a disruptor working with disruptive agencies such as yellowHEAD, we can see that's the kind of spirit that we need to start seeing real change. And I think what makes some agencies more resilient than others throughout these times where everyone I think is trying to sell digital transformation is first of all their range of capabilities, and second, the ability to embrace the pace of change. So to work on a D2C project, you have to have the right infrastructure. The agency has to have a very good data department, a tech department that can carry the load of the work. The creative department has to be driven by real ROI, and also that the media and the creative work together as one team. And I think a good partnership is when you guys both said it, that the client and the agency are working together, which makes it feels more like a rhythm, right? And that has a really good balance to it. And that the agency has actually become the extension of the marketing division. That's what a good partnership would look like.
Yeah, maybe I'll add one thing here, because it's all are very good points, and I think that it's also a matter of a lot of trust. And I think from the example I have some examples. For example, with Tuto is on the call, and I respect him a lot. When we talk about DTC or digital in general, like connecting an agency partner and a brand, the first thing I would say is important is like trust, autonomy, and agility. It's not always easy, but you want to make sure you give the pros or the one who know how to handle the specific situation to move forward fast. And I think that one of the things I've learned personally with Tuto's division, a lot of people, like over 100 people have been working on those projects, is that they fought hard to keep everything agile. It wasn't that easy. Like some approvals, channels, projects had to go through a lot of barriers, but we made it through, and the ability to stay agile with this environment was super critical. And I think mainly choosing the right people for the right projects. And we've been feeling this along the way. So I think that it's a true matter of trust, and I think it's a true matter of agility and autonomy. And when an agency and a partner, a brand sees eye to eye, it's I can say 99% it's a recipe for success. When the brand also has the tolerance and understanding, there is a need for a long-term strategy, learning curve, and want to learn together how to create something that is sustainable. I'm saying this a lot in this webinar, but there is no magic. Like there is the autonomy, there is the place to operate within, and there is the need of like working in a long-term with a long-term strategy and be tolerant to create the LTV, to reach the KPIs. So this is a very important thing in the relationship, like that has to happen.
I want to chip in on this one because, this is the magic of what we achieved was thanks to the partnerships. And there are a few key elements that I think are important, which you guys mentioned. The first one is you need to have the right agency. Not everyone is the right agency for this. Okay. So for us, we had to do a number of changes. One of them was working with the team, with the yellowHEAD, because these guys were experts in performance in the gaming industry. So when we thought who's going to be the best to drive performance on what we're doing, we turned to the gaming industry and, we found yellowHEAD. Then, now you guys own our acquisition for every market. So the first one is you need to be really specific on who you are choosing to work with based on the mindset. Mindset for me was critical. I want these guys to take more risk than I'm willing to take. I can't be myself in the brand pushing the others to take the risk. Okay, so this is one. But the risk can only happen with trust, right? So what we've tried to build time and time again is, I don't care which company you work for, you are working under the startup Pampers mission, and in your core team, you need to deliver this KPI. So we have many different partners in each core team. Each core team is going to work in an experimentation mode, on a high pace cadence. And, this core team goes beyond any company they're actually working for. And then the third point to what Guy was saying, we do all agency summits very frequently, pre-COVID especially, and now we do it online, because it's very hard when you scale this to over 100 people that everyone understands the mission and the reason for the mission. Because what's most important is not, does my DTC have this or does my digital player have that? They need to get the mission, because when they get the mission, they can bring their own ideas, because since we don't know what we don't know, it's going to be like a long journey of failure and learnings. And what I cared, about seeing, I didn't want to see success all the time. So if Guy came and say, hey man, like this campaign is not working and this is not working, that's fine. What I want to see is progress over time. So as long as you're progressing in a disruptive way, that's going to, bring the benefits. And I do think that comes with trust all over the place. And, I know when I'm dealing, when I have the expert in my team, that's what I need. So then I just need to trust them to do their job versus, policing or whatever, because, I'm not there for that and they are not either.
Cool, thanks guys. Actually, we have another question for Nitzan. Can you share some best practices for D2C marketing on Facebook?
Yeah, sure. So if we're looking into a D2C project that has a goal of getting people to purchase your goods, right? Then probably the first thing I would look into is friction. Once a year, Facebook releases its annual IQ report. I don't know if you guys know it, but I think in the last one, it stated that almost 50% of the people say they abandoned their purchase due to friction. So our goal here is to make shopping seamless, right? And when we launched Facebook and Instagram shopping, it was last summer, we really wanted to reduce that friction because we really did want to push that into our focus. And that way we wanted to make anybody in the moment of discovering a product to have the opportunity to shop immediately in just like a few taps. So this has impacted the way we market products and brands because it really represents the collapse of the traditional purchasing funnel. I mean, when you think about it, this is the real place where media becomes the shop. So what is a good shopping experience on Facebook? I would have to say that you have to shop in less than 5 taps. I mean, if you're in the middle of building your own D2C website right now, then I really encourage you to go ahead and check it out. Check out your own experience. Count the taps. Ask yourself if the creative that you ran on Facebook was built for direct response. And once you tap on the ad and you're on your website, ask yourself, was it really easy? Did you use 2 hands? Did you use 1 hand? Because every tap is more sales lost. So aim for less. That would be my recommendations.
Anything anyone else wanted to add, or we move on to the next question? Okay, so we have a question coming from the corporate perspective. How do you scale up a D2C business and being rather low margin at the start due to the high setup investments? Who wants to take that one?
So I guess I'm the more corporate guy here.
I don't know.
I don't know, right? And that's the sign I was waiting for. So look, how do you scale it? That needs to be clear from the start, right? So when you're building that plan and you're aligning your management, you need to show this is the 3-year vision and year 1 is going to suck, essentially, and it's an investment year, and that makes sense. I can tell you my personal experience. When we started with this, we had a few years of not delivering significant value creation, because in our strategy we knew we had to achieve critical mass. Like we're talking Pampers, this is a several $billion brand. So until you can make an impact, you have to be rather large, okay? But we had to make this clear with management, and we had to make them see this was the journey. You can never get to that high profitable, high growth, high impact unless you get started. So, my humble advice there is this needs to be clear from the start. You need to make sure you're aligning a few kind of early wins so that you are showing this constant progress I was mentioning. Because, and then the third element is you need to shift the conversation. Like if your conversation is around, is this paying out or not? You're never going to drive, big disruption. The conversation needs to be, what happens if we don't do this? And that's when you tell them, I'll tell you what happens. We're going to be screwed. And then you share how, language thing. Then you're going to share that if you don't do that, if you don't pursue this strategy, whatever, these are all the risks that are going to happen and materialize. And the worst case with DTC and so on is when you had a big business, you were profitable, you decided not to launch DTC because of whatever barriers like guys shared. And then 5 years later, your profit is halved, right? And you're like, we need to launch a DTC, and you don't have the money anymore. So my advice there on the third one is just make the risk so clear and so high that they are willing to go for the vision. So they are not going there for the year 1, year 2 profit. They are going for the vision. That's again, in a big corporate where you can also afford it, right? It's not a startup where you can just, you will be burning your funding on year 1.
I just, Tuto, strong points, you're the corporate guy. I think that from the data perspective, how we look at LTV and users, like low margin is good. No margin is something that has to be acceptable. Loss has to be acceptable. It's a startup mindset. It's a growth mindset. It's a marathoner mindset. When Tuto says 3 years plan, it's the spirit that you need to come with when you build this kind of operation. And I think, Tina, to your question, when you build a strategy, you need to think of the product, right? Like, is it even sustainable to sell product X? I don't know what's the product, if it's a specific product. Is it sustainable to sell it in a DTC channel? Probably answer, if we go back to one of the first questions today, maybe not, and it's fine. Maybe it's easier to consumers to buy this in an e-retailer kind of cart, and it's fine. And then what are your offerings? Can you expand your offerings? Thinking of think of Dollar Shave Club, for example. It's a very good example, just looking at them. They expanded their offerings also to shampoos, and everything has to do with grooming and personal care. And they're offering way more than just the razors and the plates. And this is something they expanded, and it's good value for money. And they have accelerated. Were they profitable at the start? I don't know for sure. I assume not, with the low prices and the high cost per acquisition. Is the LTV high now? Definitely yes. And they've been one of the biggest DTC companies right now, because they've built a long-term plan, extended their offerings, and mainly worked with the data to increase the average order value and the LTV. So long-term plan, definitely I agree with Tuto in 100%, and also think if it's a good fit, because it doesn't fit every product and every brand in every market. It's also important because US is different than, I don't know, India or France, or there are different trends, consumption trends in those markets.
Guys, believe it or not, we're actually past our time, but we have one last question. We're gonna push the envelope a bit. This is a question for Tuto, but I think we'd like to hear everybody's view, which actually brings us to what Guy just mentioned. And the question is, how do you see D2C shaping a region like Europe vis-a-vis a more homogeneous market like the US?
How do I see it? You had to leave such a difficult question. We couldn't change, right? How do I see it? Yeah, I think okay. I don't think So when you look at DTC, the kind of the backbone of DTC is super critical, like Guy was saying. And I'm I'm gonna give you guys a personal example as well. At some point, it was cheaper for us to ship products from Germany to UK to Austria back to Germany versus Germany point to point, like literally on our loyalty program, right? So the complexities in the case of Europe are quite significant, as you said, versus US. On the other hand side, US is huge, right? And every state is a country in itself. The difference is that in the US, the logistics structure is very homogeneous, right? So in the case of Europe, my advice is first take everything that Guy said. Is it the right fit? Is it the right product? If it's not the right product, can you change the experience of it through subscription? But then the second one is, we like to think of clusters in Europe. And I think there are ways you can cluster the markets so that it's reasonably scalable and similar, but at the same time, you are not bringing all of them to the same thing. Again, it highly depends on the category, vertical, country, and your brand situation. So, it's not the same if you are the leader in one country than if you are the fourth or fifth player, right? There, it may make a lot more sense. So my advice there is you take your business, you define 4 or 5 key parameters for DTC, cost of acquisition, lifetime value, and then based on these 5 parameters, you cluster the different markets, and then you pick or prioritize clusters and define where do you play with DTC and where you don't play DTC based on your vision, business, and strategy.
Yeah, I would just add on that, while working on Facebook, then I would have to say that trying out new audiences, then you just have to start small, right? Just start small, test the water, and then start to scale. That's the best way to do it, and making sure that if you fail small, and then when you start scaling, you go really, really wide.
Yeah, and one last point for mine is like DMAs, and I want to touch what you said, Nitzan, like on small scale tests, and also Tuto, to your point on so DMAs, like designated market areas or places that you want to grow or penetrate, or or areas of the country you want to penetrate. Those are good places to check the ground, maybe see if it makes sense, if it's sustainable, and then scale it up. Scaling an activity has its significance and cost, and it might cause to pause it, because the leadership in some cases of different brands is not tolerant to those kind of things. So it has to be well calculated and well explored, and clearly well planned ahead, going back to the long-term plan.
Thanks, guys. So unfortunately, we have to stop it here and wrap up. I want to thank everybody, Tuto, Nitzan, Guy, for joining us, for answering such amazing questions. And if anybody has any questions that they want to contact me or Guy, Nitzan, or Tuto, then we'll make ourselves available also for you guys to contact us as well. So thanks, everybody.
So much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the invitation.
Join us next time. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.